First Lieutenant James Earl Rudder, commanding officer, 2nd Ranger Battalion. His first-hand, foxhole-level account of the Pointe du Hoc assault is the most vivid, emotionally documented story of the operation. You do not attack a cliff, not at night, not in daylight, not under enemy fire, and absolutely not when the enemy has spent years transforming the top of that cliff into a fortress of steel, concrete, and death. For as long as men have fought wars, this rule has held true. You do not assault a vertical wall of rock when the defender holds the high ground. The moment you begin to climb, you lose the ability to shoot, dodge, maneuver, or protect yourself. Your arms are occupied, your legs are occupied. Your life is held by a rope and the hope that the enemy above you does not simply lean out, aim down, and fire. Every army that survived long enough to learn anything understood this. The Germans understood it better than most. Along the coast of Normandy, at a windswept promontory called Pointe du Hoc, they built one of their most important artillery positions, a battery of 6 French-made, 155mm GPF guns capable of firing a 95-pound shell more than 12 miles. Guns that could reach both Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, the 2 American landing zones of the WWII invasion. With those guns intact, the Germans could slaughter thousands of Americans before they ever reached dry sand. One battery, only one, could turn the greatest invasion in human history into a catastrophe. So they fortified Pointe du Hoc with 100-foot vertical cliffs, reinforced concrete casemates, deep trenches, barbed wire anti-aircraft guns, machine gun nests, mortar mines, an observation post with nearly perfect fields of vision, and above all, they fortified it with certainty. Because the Germans believed one thing absolutely: no American would ever be insane enough to attack the battery from the sea. Not up those cliffs, not under those guns, not into that killing zone. Their engineers put it in reports. Their officers repeated it. Their doctrine reinforced it. The cliffs at Pointe du Hoc were unassailable, untouchable, impossible. And for years, that rule stood unbroken. But in June 1944, on a cold, violent morning in the English Channel, one man and one unit shattered it forever. James Earl Rudder is not the kind of man you expect to lead one of the most daring assaults of the Second World War. He is 34, a former football coach, a history teacher, a farmer's son from Eden, Texas, broad-shouldered, quiet, thoughtful, the kind of officer who listens before he speaks. But his Rangers know something others don't. Rudder has a rare, immovable stability in him, a steadiness that does not crack under pressure, a patience that survives chaos, a will that does not bend, even when outnumbered or outgunned. And in 1943, when the U.S. Army transforms a handful of volunteers into elite assault troops called Rangers, Rudder becomes the man chosen to command the 2nd Ranger Battalion. He trains them harder than any other American unit, not because he wants to break them, but because he intends to send them into places no one else will go. You stand among them during those months in England. The rain is constant. The wind is brutal. The training is merciless. You climb rope ladders until your hands split. You fire grapnel rockets into wooden target walls. You practice storming mock bunkers, real explosives, real smoke, real risk. You sprint through hedgerows and mud until your legs turn numb. You rehearsed cliff assaults on the Isle of Wight, where British commandos warn you that the real climb will be harder. And through all of it, Rudder watches, corrects, pushes, encourages, demands, not perfection, something deeper, the ability to keep moving when every instinct tells you to stop, because the mission he is preparing you for demands the impossible. The Allied High Command has a problem. Air power cannot guarantee the destruction of the Pointe du Hoc guns. Naval bombardment cannot guarantee destruction either. The casemates are too strong, the guns too well protected, the Germans too capable at replacing or repairing damaged artillery. Someone must go in and destroy the guns by hand. That someone is Rudder and his 225 Rangers. Their mission is not just important, it is not just dangerous, it is essential. If they fail, tens of thousands of Americans landing at Omaha and Utah beaches will be massacred from above. The entire right flank of the invasion could collapse. Think about that for a moment. The fate of the American landings, the lives of nearly 34,000 men scheduled to storm those 2 beaches, depends on a unit smaller than a high school graduation class. And every intelligence report says the same thing. The Germans believe Pointe du Hoc cannot be taken. That is the fortress Rudder must conquer. That is the cliff his rangers must climb. That is the rule they must break. You board the landing craft in the pre-dawn darkness. The sea is rough, the air is sharp. Your hands shake as you check your gear yet again. Your rifle, your grenades, your rope, your knife. The sky is too dark, the water is too cold, your stomach too tight. But you go, because rudder goes, because every ranger around you goes, because history demands it. And as your craft pushes off toward a place you have studied for months, you understand, deeply, fully, that you are about to attempt something the world believes cannot be done. The cliffs wait, the guns wait, the Germans wait, and the next hour will decide everything. The ramp drops, cold seawater crashes in, machine gun fire snaps from the cliffs above, mortar fall in white plumes across the waves, and you see it, the dark, jagged wall of Pointe du Hoc rising straight out of the sea, like some biblical barrier, a sheer, wet, hostile cliff stretching 100 feet into a sky now choked with smoke. Your landing craft is supposed to pull up to the shingle at the base of the cliff. Instead, the current has dragged you 3 miles east, directly under German guns you are not meant to face. Rudder orders the boats to turn west. It feels impossible. Artillery geyser, the water, tracer rounds rake the surf. Every second, you expect to feel the steel punch of a bullet, but the craft keeps moving. 800 yards, 500 yards, 300 yards. The cliffs loom larger, their tops flash with German muzzle fire. You grip the rail with shaking hands. Your stomach feels hollow. Your breath is shallow. This is not just a landing. This is a blind leap into death. Rudder's voice rises above the engines. Ready ropes, ready rockets. Your grapnel rockets, the tools that will carry your ropes to the cliff tops, wait in their launchers. The lines are soaked from the waves. The powder is wet. You pray they fire, because if they don't, you will die in the surf. If they don't, the mission ends here. If they don't, those guns survive, and Omaha bleeds out. The crafts break formation, each aiming for its assigned slice of cliff. Navy destroyers USS Satterley and USS Talbot tear into the cliff tops with 5-inch shells, trying to suppress the German fire. But the defenders are alive, very alive. MG-42s rip at the decks. Rifles crack downward from unseen slits. Grenades sail over the cliff edge, splashing into the water. You can see German silhouettes moving across the rim, dark shapes against the smoke. They are ready for you. Your craft slams into the base of Pointe du Hoc. Go, go, go. You leap into waist-deep water. It is shockingly cold. The surf drags at your legs. Bullets hammer the water around you like hail. You run. More accurately, you stumble, trip, surge through crashing waves until your boots hit the shingle. There is no cover, only wet rock, only the cliff, only the ropes, ropes up. The first grapnel rockets streak upward, trailing smoke, hissing like furious snakes. Some slam into the cliff face and bounce away. Some fall short. Some fail to ignite, their powder soaked. But a few, a blessed few, arc perfectly. Their hooks bite into the soil and rock at the top of the cliff. The ropes whip down tight, and now the impossible begins. You grab a rope, your hands burn, your boots slide on the wet cliff. Your heart seizes in your chest. Above you, Germans lean out from their trenches and shoot straight down. Bullets snap past your head, pebbles shatter into your face. Chunks of rock fall from grenades detonating above. One ranger climbs 3 feet. An MG burst cuts the rope, and he falls backward into another ranger. They crash to the shingle but rise again. The air smells like burning cordite and salt. Your ears ring with explosions. Your arms scream with pain. And you climb 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. Halfway up, the Germans try a new tactic. They cut ropes. A German soldier leans out with a combat knife, slashing 2 lines in seconds. Rangers plummet, slamming into rock, tumbling into the surf below. Another German rolls a grenade over the edge. It explodes mid-air, spraying shrapnel across the climbers. You hold the rope so tight your fingernails tear against the fibers. Your breath comes in short bursts. Your boots scrape, slip, then catch. 50 feet, 70 feet, 85 feet. You can see the lip now, the muddy, broken soil just above your head. You reach, a hand grabs you, a ranger already on top, and yanks you over the rim. For a moment, you lie on your back, lungs heaving. Then you rise. Because Rudder told you something months ago in training. If you get to the top, you keep moving. That is how you live. The world becomes chaos. The cliff top is not a single position. It is a maze, cratered ground from naval shells, twisted wire, concrete casemates, trenches zigzagging with German infantry, machine guns hidden in sandbag nests, and the Rangers who topped the cliff first are already in the fight. Captain Bill Ray's men storm a machine gun emplacement with grenades and bayonets, killing the crew in a savage close-quarters fight. Lieutenant Charles Parker leads a squad toward the casemates, using shell craters as cover, firing at Germans fleeing between trench lines. Lieutenant Leonard Lommel, quiet, calm, unshakable, moves like he's done this 100 times. He checks his men, he checks the ground, he checks the next trench line. Then he sees something wrong. Something is very wrong. The casemates' massive reinforced concrete bunkers built to house the 6.155s are empty. Every single one. The naval bombardment had been so heavy, the Germans had moved the guns inland to keep them safe. Lommel stares into the casemate through the smoke. His mind races. The guns aren't here, but they exist. They have to be somewhere, and if the Germans can reposition them, those guns can still massacre every man landing on Omaha and Utah. This is the moment where most units report up the chain, where most officers wait for orders. But Lommel is a ranger, and rangers lead the way. He turns to Sergeant Jack Kuhn. They've got to be close. Let's find them. If you find this kind of forgotten history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. We believe these stories of courage deserve to be told, and by subscribing, you help us ensure they aren't forgotten. You brace yourself against the cold metal railing as the USS England knifes through the Pacific swells. Every vibration through the deck plates, reminding you that this tiny ship, this 1202 escort, has now become the most lethal submarine killer afloat. But fame is a dangerous companion, and by the fifth kill, it begins to whisper. Word spreads across the task group, across the region, across Tokyo. Messages fly through encrypted Japanese circuits. One American escort is sinking our submarines. Repeatedly, you can almost feel it in the iron electrical tension buzzing through steel bulkheads and whispered conversations. The officers don't say it outright, but you hear the undertone. This can't last. Sooner or later, our luck runs out. You lie awake in your bunk at night, listening to the rhythmic pulse of the engine's mechanical heartbeat that never stops. You wonder whether the next submarine might get inside your range, might fire a torpedo before you detect it, might break what feels like an impossible streak, and then it happens. The Combat Information Center goes silent as another decrypted message from Japanese Naval Command appears. Another supply submarine, another urgent reinforcement mission, another boat has been ordered to move through your sector. The pattern is now unmistakable. You aren't hunting them, they are marching, blindfolded, into your guns. 6 in 13 days. If you get this one, you will do something no ship in US Navy history and no ship in world naval history has ever done. You hear officers murmuring about impossible odds. You hear sailors joking nervously about buying lottery tickets. You feel the same fear they feel, but also something else, a growing awareness that you're part of something historic. As you move to general quarters yet again, you press a hand to the bulkhead beside the ladder well. It's a ritual now, a touch for luck, a promise to come back. You climb to your station, the lights shift, the ship slows, and then your headphones explode with sound the harsh, unmistakable spike of a submarine's echo return. The sixth target has entered the ring. The ocean feels different this time, more hostile, more awake. Maybe it's your nerves. Maybe it's the Japanese captain knowing full well that American destroyer escorts are in the area. Or maybe it's the simple truth that even the best streaks meet resistance. The submarine tries something new. Instead of running deep like the others, it zigzags rapidly and fires a decoy, bold canister creating a noisy cloud meant to confuse your sonar. For a moment, the return grows fuzzy, ambiguous, dishonest. You feel sweat gathering under your headphones. You adjust the gain. You sweep the arc slowly. And then, through the distortion, you hear it. A faint, tight, consistent ping. Not a decoy. A hull. A living submarine trying to slip away, bearing steady, range decreasing. You lock onto it like a predator. The captain orders another hedgehog run. This one is fast, aggressive, close enough to risk a counterattack. If the submarine gets desperate, the projector teams fire. The entire ship rattles as another 24-round burst arcs into the sea. Seconds pass, tense, silent, and then a single deep thud, then another, then a cluster, then a roaring, rising column of violent bubbles tearing toward the surface. Your sixth kill is real. 13 days, 6 submarines, a feat never matched before or since. The CIC erupts. Some men laugh, some shout, some simply collapse into seats, exhausted by the weight of the moment. You remain still for a moment, letting the truth settle. You were part of something legendary. But even legends have shadows, because with every submarine you've destroyed, the Japanese struggle harder to resupply their isolated garrisons. Men on Pacific Islands starve while Tokyo desperately tries to push more boats into the ever-tightening American net. And above all, Japan now knows the name USS England, and they want it erased. When dawn breaks the next morning, the sea looks calm to calm, as if nature is offering a false peace to a ship that has enraged an empire. You stand on deck, the breeze carrying the scent of hot oil and salt water. You've always known the Japanese Navy was relentless, but now you feel Itan, invisible crosshair settling on your ship's hull. Because, after your sixth kill, analysts aboard the flagship intercept something frightening. A Japanese directive calling for the destruction of the American escort that has been sinking their submarines. They do not know your ship's number. They do not know your exact identity. But they know you exist, and they want vengeance. For months, Japanese submarines hunted alone, silent, solitary wolves. But after your streak, they switch strategies. Boats begin coordinating. Some move in pairs, some lay low near choke points, waiting for small American ships like yours. They know hedgehog-equipped escorts are the deadliest threat in the Pacific's underwater war, so they begin to hunt you in return. And on a moonless night, only days after your sixth kill, your radar operator sees something. A fast contact approaching from the northeast. Not a merchant ship. Not friendly. Too fast. Too purposeful. Surface contact. Closing. You brace yourself. A Japanese submarine surfaced to conserve battery power is barreling directly toward your position. It's not fleeing. It's charging. You feel the blood drain from your face. This submarine captain knows what you are. He knows you are the deadliest submarine killer in the Pacific, and he has decided the only way to kill you is to ram you. Searchlights snap on, slicing through darkness. The silhouette appears sleek, angular, its deck gun silhouetted against the stars. That bastard's coming right for us. Alarms scream across the ship. Men rush to stations. Your heart slams against your ribs. The submarine fires first its deck, gun barking fire across the waves. Shells whistle over your head, some smashing into the water with geysers of white spray. Then your guns respond. The 3-inch battery roars. You cover your ears as each blast shakes your bones. Tracer fire streaks across the sea like angry red comets. The submarine keeps charging. Its bow is cutting a white wound across the water. For a split second, you swear you see the Japanese captain on the conning tower. Illuminated in the flashes, a man who knows he is doomed, but refuses to die without taking his enemy with him. Your ship veers hard to starboard. The submarine tries to adjust, but the angle is lost. Gunfire rips across its hull. A shell explodes against the conning tower. Another ignites something inside the pressure hull. And then, a fireball. A bloom of flame rising from the submarine like a dying star. The boat begins to list. Men leap into the sea. The bow dips under. And in less than a minute, the submarine vanishes beneath the black surface. Your streak remains unbroken. But now you understand the truth. It isn't luck. It isn't fate. It's because every man aboard this ship refuses to die, and the Japanese know it. You return to port months later, long after your streak has become legend. 6 submarines in 13 days. A suicidal charge was thwarted. Countless convoys were escorted unharmed. You step onto the pier and feel something strange. The world has changed since you left. Young sailors stare at your ship with awe. Officers treat your crew with the kind of respect usually reserved for battleships or aircraft carriers. Newspapers call you heroes. Admirals mention your ship's name in speeches. Even President Roosevelt is briefed on your astonishing record. But the true weight of what you accomplished takes time to sink in, because historians will later calculate that the submarines destroyed by your ship were carrying supplies, communications, and reinforcement plans for Japanese garrisons from New Guinea to the Solomons. Your kills didn't just sink steel hulls. They starved Japanese island defenses. They crippled communications networks. They helped ensure that Allied landings met weakened resistance. All from a ship smaller than a destroyer, with a crew barely older than college students, armed with a new, unproven weapon that could have easily failed. But it didn't fail, and neither did you. And the world would never forget the name USS England. When the war finally ends, the oceans grow quiet again, and the men who survived return to a world completely different from the endless blue horizons they once sailed. But for you and for everyone who served aboard the USS England, the silence feels heavier than the gunfire ever did. Because once the noise fades, memory takes its place. You remember the hum of sonar in your headphones. You remember the sharp metallic clang of depth charge racks. You remember the trembling deck after a hedgehog barrage. You remember faces that laughed through exhaustion, faces that cursed through fear, faces that went pale under red battle lights. And you remember the weight of knowing that every submarine you destroyed carried sailors just like you, men with families, hopes, and fears, all swallowed by the same sea you crossed home on. War leaves no one untouched, not even the victorious. Months later, a message circulates through the Pacific Fleet. The Secretary of the Navy himself has issued a statement regarding your ship. You read it slowly, stunned at first, then speechless. There shall always be an England in the United States Navy. It is not a slogan, not a metaphor. It is a promise, a permanent line written into the Navy's heart. A ship so small, so ordinary on the outside, had done something so extraordinary that an entire military branch vowed never to let its name vanish from the fleet. And for the rest of your life, you carry those words like a medal engraved into your soul. As decades pass, tension between superpowers grows. A new Cold War dawns. And true to the Navy's promise, another ship takes your name. A guided missile cruiser, sleek, powerful, bristling with radars and missiles your old crew could barely imagine. She serves with distinction, defending carriers, tracking threats, and projecting American power across oceans you once patrolled with nothing but analog dials and steel nerves. She, too, earns honor, and she, too, ensures the name England echoes across the waves. Because the name doesn't belong to one ship, it belongs to a legacy born under fire. Your England wasn't built for glory. She wasn't built to stand out. She wasn't built to rewrite naval warfare. She was built to escort convoys, to be the unnoticed guardian in the background, a sheepdog among wolves, nothing more, nothing less. But in 13 days, she became something else entirely, a weapon so effective that Japan altered its entire submarine strategy, a ship so feared that enemy commanders issued special orders to destroy her, a vessel so historic that she set a record no warship has beaten before or since. Not a battleship, not a carrier, not a cruiser, a destroyer, escort, a tiny ship with a tiny crew, who dared to fight with precision, discipline, and courage that bordered on reckless faith. Sometimes, years later, you wake in the middle of the night to echoes of your sonar pings. You smell cordite from your forward gun mount. You remember the surreal silence that follows a submarine's destruction, a silence not of peace, but of consequences, because war teaches you that victory is never clean, never light, never simple. You think of the Japanese sailors who never resurfaced. You think of the ones you saw leaping from the burning submarine that charged you in desperation. You think of how narrow the line was between your survival and theirs. History records numbers, ships sunk, shots fired, days counted, but you remember the humans on both sides of the sonar screen. That is the burden, that is the truth, that is the legacy. Historians eventually uncovered documents revealing how critical those submarines truly were. They carried officers, dispatches, encryption manuals, and supplies meant to reorganize crumbling Japanese island defenses. Destroying them didn't just save Allied convoys, it crippled Japanese plans that might have prolonged the war. Your 6 kills were not random victories. They were pivotal blows at exactly the moment Japan needed relief the most. Later, naval academies study your hunts. They break down your sonar patterns, your maneuvering tactics, your hedgehog firing sequences. Cadets are taught how a small ship, with proper coordination and relentless discipline, can become the deadliest unit in an ocean war. And when they speak of these operations, they do not speak of a faceless crew. They speak of you. Decades pass. Your hair goes gray, your hands grow slow. The world moves on. But one day, you visit a naval museum and find a small exhibit tucked in a corner, a simple glass case holding a sonar headset, a hedgehog projectile, and a brass plate, reading USS England, 6 submarines in 13 days. You stand there for a long time, longer than you expected, long enough for memories you thought you had buried to rise again. People walk past the display quickly, glancing for a moment before moving on. But you know, you lived it. You felt the vibrations through the deck when each submarine died. You felt the fear of the charging I-boat, lit by tracer fire. You felt the exhaustion after 13 days of battle that seemed to stretch into 13 lifetimes. You place your hand on the glass, the same gesture you once made on a steel bulkhead before climbing to your station. A ritual for luck, a silent promise. In the years that follow, naval historians, documentary filmmakers, and students of war continued to study the USS England. Her record remains unbroken. Her name remains honored. Her story remains told wherever sailors gather to speak of courage under impossible odds. And whenever someone says the phrase, "There will always be an England in the United States Navy," you smile softly, because you understand something they don't. It was never about the steel, never about the guns, never about the technology. It was about the men, young, scared, determined men, who refused to miss, refused to quit, refused to blink first. You were one of them, and that is why the legend lives. 6 submarines, 13 days, 1 ship, 0 regrets. But the truth is deeper than numbers. The truth is that the USS England wasn't just a ship. She was proof that precision can defeat power, that training can defeat terror, that ordinary men, in the right moment, can perform extraordinary deeds, and that even in the vastness of the Pacific, a tiny vessel can cast a shadow large enough to darken an empire's hopes. When you close your eyes, you still hear the sonar, you still hear the captain's orders, you still feel the deck tremble beneath your boots, and you still know, deep down, that for 13 days in 1944, you served aboard the deadliest submarine hunter in naval history, a ship named England. A ship that, as long as sailors tell stories, will never die.